There's a moment in every transformational journey when it all seems pointless, when the effort feels too small to matter. You drink a glass of water, meditate for 5 minutes, take a walk instead of scrolling, and life doesn't shift overnight. So you wonder, does this even count? But here's what you were never told. The field doesn't measure transformation by speed. It measures by signal consistency, and that means every tiny habit, every microscopic act of alignment is sending ripples across your quantum field, whether you feel it or not. This is the quantum ripple effect, the truth that no action exists in isolation. Every choice, no matter how small, generates a cascade of energetic consequences, and those consequences aren't just personal, they're vibrational. They are sending instructions to your future, to the people you will meet, to the opportunities that will collide with you in ways you can't predict. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast still lake. You drop in a single pebble, tiny, almost weightless. The surface ripples outward, expanding silently in all directions. You don't control where the waves go, but they go, they move, they touch everything. That's what happens every time you do something aligned with your future self, no matter how small. One glass of water, one journal entry, one pause before reacting, one act of self-respect. The universe doesn't judge the size of the act. It registers the frequency it carries. And here's the part most people miss. The field is never ignoring you. It's just responding at the level you're vibrating, and most importantly, at the level of consistency. It's not about intensity. It's about coherence. It's not the single act of eating a healthy meal that shifts your biology. It's the ripple created when that act is repeated, believed in, and observed with presence. Over time, those ripples converge. They build a new wave, and that wave carries you into a timeline you couldn't have accessed from effort alone. Let's make this real. You wake up tomorrow and decide, not dramatically, not ceremonially, just quietly, that you'll sit for 3 minutes in silence before your day begins. Not to get enlightened, not to manifest a mansion, just to be with yourself. That small act generates a ripple. You start your day a little more grounded. Maybe you don't snap at your partner like you usually do. Maybe you choose a better breakfast. Maybe that gives you more mental clarity at work. And suddenly, an idea arrives. You send an email you were hesitating on. Someone responds. A door opens. But none of that was visible from the starting point. It didn't look like your future was shifting, but it was. This is the paradox. The biggest shifts often hide inside the smallest acts, because those acts, repeated with presence, rewire the way you signal to the field. And the field, always intelligent, always listening, begins to organize itself around your new frequency. We're taught that change comes from leaps, from grand decisions, from breakthroughs and breakdowns. But quantum reality doesn't work in drama. It works in vibration, in subtle calibration, in choosing a new timeline before there's proof it's working. That's what habits really are. Not routines, not productivity hacks. They are daily declarations of identity. They're how you tell the field who you've decided to be. And if you hold that signal long enough, reality will begin to collapse into coherence with it. This is why nothing is ever wasted. No breath, no step, no micro moment of alignment. They're all pebbles. They're all ripples. They're all shaping a lake you can't yet see. And the real shift begins when you stop looking for immediate proof and start trusting the quantum law of compounding vibration. Because at some point those ripples become a wave so strong, it lifts you out of the version of reality you thought you were stuck in. So if you've been waiting for a big breakthrough, pause, take a breath, and drop a new pebble. Today, that cup of water, that stretch, that one paragraph of the book you've been avoiding, that 90-second meditation. That tiny choice is not a small thing. It's a quantum command, a signal saying, this is who I am now. And the universe always listens to declarations of identity made with frequency. In the next few minutes, we'll explore how these invisible waves of habit shape your life in ways far more powerful than effort ever could. You'll see why your most sacred rituals are often the smallest, and you'll learn how to turn your daily life into a playground of quantum alignment, one ripple at a time. There's a strange kind of magic that happens in the mundane, but only if you know how to look for it. The way you brush your teeth, the way you pour your coffee, the way you speak to yourself before anyone else does. These moments don't seem powerful. They don't feel spiritual, but quantumly they are, because every seemingly small behavior is a broadcast, and your field is listening even when your mind isn't. Modern science calls this habit stacking or behavioral anchoring, but in the quantum realm we call it vibrational sequencing. It's the invisible web of microactions that either align you with coherence or pull you into entropy, and that alignment, or dissonance, builds across time, not in dramatic explosions, but in subtle, almost imperceptible layers. You wake up late. You skip the breath. You reach for your phone. Your nervous system contracts. You enter the field of your day already out of tune. You feel behind, unfocused, irritable, and yet, when you try to fix the day later, with affirmations or a healthy lunch or a meditation, it doesn't quite land. Why? Because the ripple has already begun. The sequence is set. But now imagine this. Same morning, but you wake up and put both feet on the ground with presence. You pause. You breathe. You whisper something gentle to yourself. Today, I tune into alignment. You drink your water with intention. You listen, not to the noise outside, but to your body. In that simple shift, you've changed your trajectory, not just emotionally, but energetically. The ripple you just created won't just make your morning smoother. It may shift an entire opportunity 5 days from now. You just altered the timeline without trying. You just practiced the quantum butterfly effect, and it started with your routine. It's not random, it's resonance. The quantum field does not respond to size. It responds to precision, and that's the piece that rewires everything. You don't have to do more to create change. You simply have to stop scattering your energy. You have to collapse coherence into the moment you're in. Because it's not what you do that creates impact. It's how whole you are while doing it. Let's bring it closer. Have you ever noticed how when you skip your morning workout, your food choices shift? Or when you sleep in, you speak to yourself with a bit more criticism? Or when you skip journaling, you react more during meetings? These aren't coincidences. They're energetic cascades. Your system is trying to regulate from a lower frequency, and it compensates in fragmented ways. The truth is, there is no isolated habit. Every action touches another. Every vibration threads itself into the next. Every choice becomes a tuning fork for the field you walk into. And here's what most people miss. They think they need a breakthrough habit, the one that will change everything. But in quantum reality, it's not the big thing. It's the first thing, the anchor, the spark that recalibrates the next dozen micro decisions you make. That's why your morning is sacred, not because it's trendy to have a morning routine, but because your first wave of frequency sets the tone for your entire day's interaction with the field. If your first act is chaotic, the field returns chaos. If it's present, the field returns clarity. It's not spiritual punishment, it's physics. This doesn't mean every day needs to start with perfection. You don't need to meditate for 60 minutes on a mountain. You don't need green juice and Himalayan salt lamps. What you need is conscious entry into the field of your own life. And that can take 30 seconds, one breath, one sentence of truth. And the compounding effect? That's where the miracles happen. Because that single act of morning presence makes you slightly more conscious in your next meal. That awareness in eating gives you just enough clarity to handle a conversation with less ego. That cleaner interaction shifts your mood for the afternoon, which shifts your decision to finally make that phone call, which opens a door. And that door changes everything, not because you planned it, but because you planted it. And it started with how you looked at your coffee. This is the secret sacredness of daily life. And the quantum ripple effect isn't mystical. It's mechanical. It's how the universe amplifies what you embody. Not eventually, immediately. But the field has no opinion. It just reflects. It just echoes. It just calibrates to what you feed it most consistently. So the question becomes, what are you sending? In the next few minutes, we'll look at what happens when those ripples are repeated, refined, and trusted, not just for a week, but as a new way of being. You'll see how tiny becomes magnetic, how the invisible becomes inevitable, and how your smallest choices become your future self's foundation. You don't need a revolution. You need a rhythm. A rhythm so true, so subtle, and so consistent that the quantum field has no choice but to take you seriously. Because what you repeat with presence becomes sacred, and what becomes sacred rewrites your reality. Let's strip away the myth of go big or go home. In quantum terms, going small with coherence will always outperform going big with chaos. Because in the field, alignment amplifies. And sometimes what seems like the smallest shift is actually the loudest signal you can send to the universe. You don't need to believe this. You just need to remember it. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who felt like she'd lost her creativity. Years had passed since she'd written anything. Every time she tried to begin again, she felt overwhelmed. "I can't write a book," she'd say. "I don't have time. I don't even know where to start." So she didn't start. For 5 years, the desire stayed quiet. Until one day she made a promise. 5 minutes of journaling a day. Just 5 minutes. No rules. No outcome. The first week, it felt pointless. The second, she noticed her language shifting. By the third, something broke open. Ideas flowed. Old energy moved. Within a year, she'd completed a manuscript. Today, she's a published author, and her voice reaches thousands, all because she made the small sacred. There's another man who felt out of shape, disconnected from his body, ashamed of how far he'd drifted. He didn't go buy weights. He didn't hire a trainer. He just began walking. 10 minutes a day. Rain or shine. Shoes on. Music low. Movement honest. Not to lose weight. Not to impress anyone. But because his body was tired of waiting for the perfect plan. That small daily walk became 30. Then he added water. Then different food choices. 2 years later, not only did he transform physically, he began coaching others to do the same. Not through punishment, through presence. Or the young woman who set aside her daily latte. Not because of guilt, but because she wanted to teach herself that redirecting energy mattered. Every day she transferred that $6 into a savings app. She watched it grow, not just in dollars, but in pride. That habit evolved into reading about investing, shifting her spending identity, and eventually building enough capital to start her dream business. All from one small choice, repeated with clarity. What do these stories have in common? None of them started with perfection. They started with decision. A choice to anchor energy into form, not once, but again and again. Because in the quantum field, consistency is identity, and identity is what collapses potential into reality. The mistake most people make is waiting to feel motivated, but motivation is fickle. It's loud, it's bright, and it burns out fast. Sacred habits don't rely on motivation, they rely on meaning. You give your habit meaning by choosing it even when it doesn't feel dramatic. Especially when it doesn't. That's when it becomes part of your field signature. The universe isn't counting your reps. It's tuning into your rhythm. So the question becomes, can you be trusted with the small? Because if you can, the field will entrust you with the large. There's a reason ancient spiritual practices revolve around repetition. Chanting, breathwork, lighting a candle, bowing. It's not the act itself. It's the frequency it carries. The way it says, I remember who I am. I am here again. I am present again. I choose again. Over time, that becomes a gravitational pull. You become a timeline magnet. This is why your 5-minute meditation is not meaningless, why your hydration matters, why taking a mindful pause before reacting is quantum work, because each act is a ripple, each ripple, a recalibration. And each recalibration brings you closer to the version of you who already exists, and who lives not in intensity, but in vibrational sovereignty. So if you're still waiting for that big break, look smaller. The portal might be disguised as a walk around the block, a decision to breathe deeply before sending an email, a journal entry when the mind says, "Why bother?" And in the next few minutes, you'll see how to identify the exact ripple that unlocks your next level, your quantum trigger, and how to repeat it with intention, frequency, and grace. Because your next shift won't arrive with fanfare. It will come in quietly, like a whisper, like a rhythm, like a pebble in the lake. You're not lazy. You're not inconsistent. You're not broken. You're just wired, like most of humanity, to underestimate the invisible power of repetition. We've been trained to chase transformation through extremes, big moves, loud decisions, dramatic shifts. But the real transformation is quiet. It happens in the places no one applauds. It happens through the signal you send when no one's watching, and that signal is encoded into your habits, not the ones you perform when you're motivated, but the ones you commit to when nothing feels magical. This is where the idea of the quantum trigger comes in. Unlike traditional productivity, which focuses on habits as isolated behaviors, quantum habits are vibrational keys. They're not just routines. They're tuning forks that recalibrate your field. They're not just what you do, but how you do it, and who you are while doing it. A quantum trigger is a micro-action that, when repeated with coherence, unlocks momentum across timelines. It's not about doing more. It's about doing the right small thing, at the right frequency, until reality responds. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need to find your quantum ignition point. One habit, one ripple, one anchor that, when honored daily, shifts the gravitational center of your being. So how do you find it? You start by observing yourself, gently, without judgment. You track what gives you energy, not stimulation, not a dopamine rush, but true resonance. Maybe it's a 60-second breath before checking your phone. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you're grateful for every night. Maybe it's putting your hand on your heart and speaking your new identity aloud. These are not tasks. They are vibrational anchors. They're not about discipline, they're about declaration. Let me tell you what most people get wrong. They think their problem is inconsistency. But the truth is they've just never chosen a habit that felt alive. A habit that's more than obligation. A habit that feels like a reunion with your higher self. That's what a quantum trigger is. It's a doorway. And once opened, it doesn't just change your next 5 minutes, it shifts the field around your entire life. Now here's the part where most give up. They start the habit. They feel good. But after a few days, life gets loud again. Old patterns whisper. The mind says this isn't doing anything, and they stop. Not because they're weak, but because they've been trained to expect instant confirmation. But in the quantum realm, the ripple is real long before the wave is visible. That's why the sacred art of building quantum habits is not just action. It's trust. It's holding the signal long enough for the field to match it. And if you're wondering, is 1 minute enough? Let me be clear. 1 minute of presence is more powerful than 10 hours of unconscious action. 1 minute, fully lived, can change your trajectory. Because in that minute, you are no longer reacting. You are creating. You are not asking for change. You are becoming it. So if you've been stuck in overwhelm, stop aiming for more. Aim for smaller, but deeper. And here's a starting ritual. Choose one habit that takes less than 2 minutes. One that aligns with your next level self. Then ask yourself, can I do this today as if it already matters? Can I show up to this small act as if it's sacred? If the answer is yes, you've just activated your ripple. Repeat it tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Not for results, but for resonance. Because when the field recognizes consistency, without desperation, it opens. That's the moment timelines bend. That's when synchronicities increase. That's when you become a vibrational match to a future that used to feel out of reach. And if you're ready to ground this, I invite you to anchor it in the field right now. Comment below. One small shift, one big ripple. Let that be your declaration. To yourself, to the field, to the future you who already lives inside that ripple. Let that comment carry the weight of your next decision. Let it be the first wave in a reality that's already forming around you, because you don't need to move the mountain, you just need to move your signal. And that begins with one small sacred action, repeated until the universe starts to echo it back. In the next few minutes, we'll take this ripple deeper, exploring how the field doesn't measure what you do but how you hold what you do, and how your frequency, not your effort, becomes the language through which your reality speaks back. There is no such thing as a silent action. No gesture is ever truly invisible. Every moment you live, the field listens. It doesn't need your words. It doesn't respond to your hustle. It only reads frequency. And the frequency of your habits, your choices, your micro-decisions. That is the real language of creation. We tend to think the universe notices us when we scream, when we cry out in need, when we finally do something big enough to deserve a response. But the truth is far more subtle. The quantum field is not looking for drama. It's tuning into coherence. And coherence isn't loud. It's precise. It's grounded. It's consistent. So when you pause to take a breath before reacting to someone, the field records it. When you replace a moment of gossip with silence, the field expands. When you choose presence over distraction, or gratitude over complaint, the field shifts. These moments don't feel impressive to the ego, but to the quantum fabric of your life, they are tectonic. Why? Because the field doesn't follow intensity. It follows integrity. Your reality doesn't change when you try harder. It changes when your signal becomes stable. And that stability is built through repetition, not of action alone, but of alignment. The repetition of becoming the version of you who no longer needs outer validation to hold an inner frequency. This is where we begin to understand the deeper spiritual mechanics behind the quantum ripple effect. It's not just about doing something small every day. It's about being someone real every moment, not perfect, not enlightened, but honest, present, tuned in. That's what the field responds to. Not your effort, but your embodiment. Let's break this down in practical terms. Imagine a person who spends 10 minutes each morning repeating affirmations with tension in their body, checking their phone between lines, worrying if it's working. They might be saying all the right things, but their field is signaling dissonance. Now imagine someone else who simply stands still for 1 full minute each morning, hand on heart, breathing into gratitude without needing to perform. Their action is smaller, but their frequency is clear. The second person will collapse a more aligned reality, not because they did more, but because their signal was coherent. This is the paradox of quantum manifestation. The field responds faster to those who are not attached to results. Why? Because attachment creates static. It clogs the wave with doubt. But presence, true, consistent presence, amplifies clarity, and clarity collapses potential into form. Here's the truth you've always known but maybe forgotten. You are already broadcasting. The question is, what is your signal saying? Are you telling the field, I don't trust this. I need proof. I'll believe it when I see it. Or are you saying, I am here. I remember. I am aligned no matter what appears. The ripple effect begins inside that choice. That subtle, sacred choice to stay with your truth. Even when the external world offers no applause. Especially then. Because that's when the field begins to echo your internal state with external shifts. And those shifts? They may not come in fireworks. They may arrive as a quiet clarity, a release of tension, a moment of grace, a door that opens in silence. But make no mistake, they are coming, because the field is always listening. It listens to how you brush your teeth. how you breathe before speaking, how you walk into a room, how you treat your body when no one's watching. It listens when you choose not to scroll, when you drink water with intention, when you stop apologizing for your light. These are not lifestyle choices, these are field instructions. And the more precise your instructions become, not through force, but through authenticity, the more magnetic your field grows. That's when people say, I don't know what it is about you, but something shifted. That something is coherence. That something is quantum. So if you've ever wondered, why isn't it working yet? Ask not what you're doing. Ask how you're being. Ask if your habits carry the signature of your future self, or the residue of your old story. And if it's still unclear, remember this. The field is not testing you. It's attuning you. It's not withholding. It's preparing. It's not ignoring. It's mirroring. You don't need more evidence. You need more presence. And in the next few minutes, we'll return to the origin of the ripple, your daily now, and visualize the future self that already exists because of these choices. The legacy that begins when you stop performing and start vibrating as the one who already knows. Every wave you've ever sent into the field still echoes. Not one act of alignment has been lost. Not one breath of presence ignored. Even the moments you thought were wasted, the days you failed, the steps you skipped, the mornings you woke up numb, they were not the end. They were a part of the ripple, a part of the rhythm. A reminder that your becoming is non-linear, but it is certain. Legacy doesn't begin when the world sees you. It begins when you begin to see yourself clearly, again and again, through the tiny, repeated lens of sacred choice. This is the moment you realize that your reality has never been random. It has always been an echo of what you've practiced, quietly, consistently, vibrationally. There is a version of you, in a future so real it's already calling you, who doesn't need to force anymore, who doesn't seek proof, who doesn't rush the process. That version of you doesn't live in reaction. They live in resonance. They don't beg the universe for alignment. They are the alignment. And every small choice you make now, every conscious act, every micro-habit of coherence, is a message to that self. I'm coming. I remember. I am arriving. But what happens when you stop sending that signal? When you forget your power and let the old noise take over? Nothing is broken. You don't start from scratch. You just pause the wave. And the moment you return to presence, it resumes. This is the quantum gift of rhythm. It doesn't require perfection, only return, only remembrance, only presence. So if you've ever doubted whether your small habits matter, if you've ever felt like your actions were too insignificant to shift anything, let this be your remembering. Every sip of water in gratitude, every breath before speaking, every choice to stretch instead of scroll, every step you take that no one sees. They are not small. They are not nothing. They are seeds, planted in the field, watered with frequency, and destined to bloom in futures that your current self can't yet imagine. Because the version of you who already succeeded, they weren't born out of one breakthrough. They were shaped by waves, tiny, sacred, invisible ripples that began here, right now. And if you feel ready to deepen that shift, not through force, but through vibration, there's a portal waiting. It's not just a book, it's a frequency tool. Awaken Your Quantum Power was created for this exact moment in your journey, not just to give you more information, but to activate your knowing. Inside, you'll find 7 quantum shifts designed to align your habits, identity, and frequency with the future you've always felt was possible. Not through pressure, but through precision. This is not something to rush through. It's something to receive. The link to explore it is waiting in the pinned comment below. This is your invitation to take everything we've explored here and crystallize it into practice. But before you go, take one more breath. Place your hand on your heart. And remember, you are not building your life from scratch. You are remembering it into form. One ripple at a time, one sacred habit at a time, one signal at a time. This is not self-help. This is quantum identity. This is not a routine. It's your resonance, and your resonance is your reality. Comment below. One small shift, one big ripple. Let the field feel your choice. Let the universe reflect your signal.